Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we'll be talking about the show House of the Dragon. Fun fact, this show is a spin-off of Game of Thrones taking place about 200 years before the events of that show, which you probably already knew. But this show is based off of the book Fire and Blood by George R. Martin, and while this is the first spin-off, it is not the last. This show came out in 2022 and stars Emma D'Arcy, Olivia Cooke, and Paddy Constantine, and was created by George R. Martin, Ryan Condal, and Miguel Sapochnik. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. House of the Dragon follows House Targaryen, who are the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms with their dragons. This season shows how certain events lead up to a civil war. House of the Dragon is a fantasy drama. It has similar vibes to Game of Thrones, Rings of Power, or The Witcher. House of the Dragon primarily sees Princess Rhaenyra and Alicent, who start off as friends, grow to become enemies. The show features many time jumps, which helps to move the story along and show how people grow and evolve over time. The casting for the show was fantastic, and I felt that the actors they chose were perfect for the roles that they played. With these time jumps, some characters are played by the same actors while others rotate, but the show made it easy to understand the differences. Millie Alcock plays a young Rhaenyra, who I would say most of the show focuses on. I was immediately attached to this character because she was one who knew what she wanted and would fight for it, but I also loved her relationship with her father. She struggles to find her place because there's so much pushback from others, but I enjoyed how she doesn't let that pushback stop her from being who she is. When Allison ends up marrying her father, there's a moment of shock that Millie shows so well, and you really see how betrayed she is by this, but this is also where their friendship starts to fall apart. She becomes heir to the Iron Throne, which bears a heavy weight because a woman has never sat on the Iron Throne, and it makes some question the king's decision. And while initially she kind of questions it herself, she comes to learn that it's her duty and she will do it whether people want her on the throne or not. She also marries a secretly gay Laenor Valerian, and instead of outing him, she makes a mutual beneficial agreement where they sleep with whoever they want, making her the number one ally in Westeros. She may be young, but Princess Rhaenyra is smart and understands how to make those around her like her. Emma D'Arcy steps into this role as an older Rhaenyra, and after Millie's performance, I was really hoping that they could continue delivering a great performance, and I'm happy to say that Emma stepped into this role flawlessly. Emma plays a princess who now has a family of her own and is slowly watching her father wither away. It was interesting to see them play a Rhaenyra who is very diplomatic while also trying to make sure that she isn't underestimated because she is a woman who will one day become queen. We see her clash with Alicent, and I loved how, after all of Alicent's petty comments and how Alicent is constantly trying to undermine her, Emma showed that Rhaenyra isn't a weak person and isn't going to fold to the pressure. Rhaenyra's kids are said to be bastards, and even though we know that they are, Rhaenyra makes sure that they know that they aren't and tries to protect them from all these rumors. I love them showing her having this role as a future heir as well as a mom and showing how she juggled that. Emma really showed their facial expressions well, which tell us what mood Rhaenyra is in. At the end of the show, we see how Rhaenyra has lost her dad, her daughter, her son and his dragon, and her lover. We get one last shot of Rhaenyra, and we can just tell from her facial expression that Rhaenyra is mad and sad, and this is right after she has just found out that her son has been killed by her brother. So it was interesting to see her facial expression. And I think that Emma showed this character of Rhaenyra as, a very nice person throughout her time playing this character. But in this moment, their facial expression comes off as one that is ready to do something crazy. And when I watched that scene, I was like, I don't know what's about to happen next in these coming seasons, but all I know is that I support Rhaenyra because there is justification behind what is about to go down. Matt Smith was great as Daemon, who I love to hate. Daemon was that character that would be great until he wasn't. He would do something in each episode that would get him in trouble, but then balance it out with something that wasn't so bad. He loved Rhaenyra, and I knew from the beginning of the season that they would be together. I love how even if we hate him, he's protective of his family and even killed a man who spoke badly about Rhaenyra's strong kids. The way Matt plays Daemon makes you think that he isn't one to be messed with and will do anything to get his way, even kill. He was a great character who you love but also love to hate. Paddy Constantine was great as Viserys, who is king and father of many kids, but throughout the season, you realize that Rhaenyra is his favorite. Paddy did such an amazing job as Viserys, who really just wanted a time of peace and no drama. I love how he loved Rhaenyra and wanted her to be happy because, let's be honest, she was the only child of his one true love, Aemma. I love how he brought up the prince that was promised and how they will save them in the future. And it's interesting that it's someone named Aegon, which obviously gets lost in translation because everybody wants to name their kid Aegon. But we fans that have watched House of Dragon and Game of Thrones know that this is probably in reference to someone down the line. But I was happy that the show brought it up and talked about it so frequently to show how important it was, not only in this world, but especially to the Targaryens. Paddy, I felt, gave his all with this performance, and I think that he did a phenomenal job expressing when Viserys was upset, when he was sad, or happy. Viserys died seeing his family together one last time, and he was very happy for a moment, and it was nice to see him just enjoying this moment of his family being together, even though right after he died, it all went to shit. Allison in the beginning is played by Emily Carey, who plays Allison in a more innocent light, who is thrown into this royal family and all of their drama and is struggling to find her footing. Allison is a character I came to especially hate in the early episodes because she was always trying to play the victim, but was also always in everyone else's business, especially Rhaenyra's. When she marries Viserys, it is a shock to everyone, and she pretends that she didn't know that he would choose her. But the viewer knew that it would be her, and she probably should know too, because he wasn't hanging out with anyone else but her. And her father was really pushy, trying to make Viserys love her and, open up to her. She later is, friends with Kristen Cole because Kristen Cole can't keep his mouth shut and tells her that he is the one that slept with Rhaenyra, which leads them later down the line becoming this evil friend group who is still living in the past and obsessed with Rhaenyra, even though Rhaenyra has moved on and doesn't give two craps about them. When Alicent becomes queen and starts barking orders, talking about your queen demands it, and tries to force Rhaenyra to like her, made me even more upset with her. In the end of Emily's time as Alicent, she goes to Rhaenyra's wedding and she comes in late, which not only interrupts the king's speech, which is extremely rude, but she comes dressed in green, which is a color of war for her house, the Hightowers, symbolizing the really start of her and Rhaenyra's separation and trying to usurp her power from Rhaenyra and trying to find ways to give the throne to her son. Emily was a great person to play Alicent as this younger version who really helped elicit strong emotions from the viewers and really making us angry and making us realize that Alicent is going to be a character that we're not going to like. Olivia Cooke comes in as an older Alicent, and let me tell you, that girl can act. She is an evil woman, but she is smart and makes very petty comments to Rhaenyra about her kids and is always trying to undermine her. When we meet Olivia's version of Alicent, she is a bitter queen who is passing all of her evilness into her kids, just like her father did, who I must mention is an awful person and a piece of crap. And he did that to her when she was younger. She's doing it to her kids. She yearns to take the throne from Rhaenyra, and even though her kids don't really want the throne, she insists on them taking it and even instills in them so much hatred, even though they don't really even care. She works with Sir Christian Cole a lot, who is just a bitter man, and her father Otto, who doesn't even treat her well, but is her father, and she just does whatever he wants. And those three work together, but are never really up to anything good. I honestly found it shocking that after all this time has passed that she was so wrapped up in what Rhaenyra does and didn't move on to something else. She always looks shocked when things come up and come to light, but in reality, she is behind the scenes pulling the strings with her little footman, Laris, and trying to cause so much chaos. She is a character who hates, who I wouldn't say hates, but I would say is deeply obsessed with Rhaenyra, and you will come to hate. And you know that the actress does a great job because she is able to pull out some strong emotions from the viewer. Speaking of Alicent's kids, one of her kids who becomes kings is a rapist, and the other who got his eye plucked out is a psycho. Aegon doesn't even really want to be king. Instead, he just wants to do whatever he wants with anyone he wants and go unchecked. Aemond, though, is interesting because he is a character that seems like he hides most of his emotions, and that makes him a little bit more intimidating because you never really know what he's thinking or, what he's trying to plan. And to top it off, he is actually a pretty good fighter, but he really needs to get over losing that eye because unfortunately, it is not coming back. Helena is just an interesting person who seems like she has just checked out of this family, and she's married to her older brother Aegon, who she clearly hates. The whole family is just a mess. Corlys Velaryon is great in this show, and I really like how Steve Toussaint showed how he is a kind man, but also he is one that has a lot of power, and he is definitely one that you want as an ally. He has a big fleet of ships, which gives him a lot of power and is often looked to for support and for help. I felt like oftentimes he was the voice of reason and tried to keep the peace as much as possible. He loved his kids, but when they died, he abandoned his family and left them to fend for themselves, which was sad to see because Rhaenys really needed him in that moment, as she tells him, as he thinks he's like joking around and she is not having it. He was an unexpected character that I came to love for the fact that he is in a unique position of being a part of the Targaryen family because of his wife and his kids, but also not. So he has like a different viewpoint on certain things. He's a great addition to the show, and I love the white dreadlocks on him. And not to mention, when his family came in for the wedding of their son, they all looked fly. The show does a great job of setting up the events that lead to this Targaryen civil war. I saw how some people were irritated that they didn't get to see certain things, like, for example, Rhaenyra's secret relationship with Strong, but the show gives you enough so you know that it's an important event in their life and you know that the kids that Rhaenyra has are probably his, but the show also will let you know that that is not the main focus of the story. It's just part of the story, and that the main focus is going to be what happens between these siblings that is initially caused by, a separation, especially from Rhaenyra and Alicent. It was interesting to see how much Rhaenyra's kids' parentage became such a big debate, and how people like Alicent passed on these rumors that her sons were bastards to her own kids, which caused even more fighting. Rhaenyra was the one trying not to cause war and being diplomatic and refused to shed first blood, but in the end, we see that this had minimal effect as her son Luke is killed, which is very sad, but it's also what sparks this war between the Blacks and the Greens. I love the last two episodes of the season where one follows the Greens, which is Alicent and the rest of the Hightowers back in King's Landing, and we get an episode that follows the Blacks, which is Rhaenyra and her supporters who are at Dragonstone. It was so interesting to see the fallout from Viserys'S death and how the Greens scrambled to find Aegon to make him king before telling anyone, especially Rhaenyra. In the episode about the Blacks, Rhaenyra is named queen, and she is still at Dragonstone, but Otto comes with a message asking for her to pledge allegiance to her brother, and he even says that like her sons could be cupbearers and some other stupid job out of his stupid mouth. And I'm glad that Damon is there, because Damon is there and he is not having it, because he is like, my kid is not going to be someone's little cupbearer, little waitress in this house. And so I love that interaction. It was a very tense situation. And it further showed that Otto is an awful person, that he really thought that she was going to go through with that, and gives her a little message from Alicent, which is nice, but who cares? You took the throne from her. Not going to happen. Anyway, I think that these episodes really let us see where these loyalties lie between, the different people that have come up in the show that weren't a part of the royal family, and figuring out, where we're going to go from here. And so it's interesting to see that, these events from these two episodes are going to cause so many problems, and that a lot of people are going to die because of this boiling tension that has now overflowed, and has definitely led to the death of Luke at the hands of his own uncle, Aemond. I'm so glad with this show we get even more dragons compared to Game of Thrones. I love how the dragons look different, and how we really get to see how big they can grow and how long they can live. In the show, we see how the Targaryens have a bond with their dragons, but that does not mean that they always have full control over them. It was interesting to see them more as pets and not necessarily as like a loyal servant to their rider. When watching this show, it's hard not to think of Game of Thrones, considering this is a spinoff. I love to see the other houses being brought up, and while they don't have a big role as they once did in Game of Thrones, they are still important, and they are a part of the realm. We see some of the Game of Thrones characters' ancestors in this show. One thing about House of the Dragon is that it made me realize that some of the things from Game of Thrones might have been messed up that have been brought up in this show. The main thing for me is the Song of Ice and Fire, which Viserys brings up constantly in this show. And it's about Aegon, who you remember is also Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, as well, and about him ending the long, cold night. And it made me realize that he probably should have been the one to kill the Night King, because from this prophecy, it makes sense that it would have been him, even though I love Arya. That scene that she killed him was so great. But in terms of the lore that's going on, it makes more sense that it's Jon. There were other small things that came to my attention, but that was like the main one. My favorite part of this season is when Rhaenys broke out of the dragon pit on her dragon Rhaenys, also known as the Red Queen, and escaped after being held hostage in her room and being set free by Sir Stephen. It was a stressful moment leading up to this, because she was being held against her will, but also her dragon was there, and I was wondering how she would get out, and then she took matters into her own hands and broke herself out. From the beginning of the season, I loved Rhaenys, and I got upset when they called her the queen that never was, because first of all, that was rude, and she was a really nice person, and I was just waiting for her to have her moment, and this was it. At first, I was like, oh my God, like, will she kill the Greens? When she was like out on her dragon and she was facing towards them, which, let's be honest, that's what we all wanted. But then I remember not only is kinslaying considered bad, but also she later states that this is not her war to start. Because at this point, nothing has really started. There's no fighting. She's like, I'm not going to be the one to start the war. This is not my fight. I am not going for the Iron Throne. Which is true because she had her time to go for the Iron Throne. She tried to go against Viserys. She didn't win. And she handled it with grace compared to other people who, are trying to usurp a throne when they are not the named heir. Um, and so now it's interesting to see her in this role of a person who has years of experience, and even though she's been overlooked, she's been paying attention and she knows how things work. And so I thought it was really interesting to see this and see her break out, and also, you know, going to let Rhaenyra know that they're coming for her and that this is not going to end well. And, I think it's important to see that as well because her grandkids are with Rhaenyra. And so I thought that was interesting too, because even if she was able to kill some of them and she wasn't able to kill all of them, they probably would have came for Rhaenyra and her grandkids. And so she definitely wanted to make sure she can go and get out safely and help them and make sure that they know, that what's going on. And so it's interesting that she was able to do that and she was able to get out, and it was just such a crazy moment and I loved every minute of it. And this scene showed that she was a badass and she wasn't going to be anyone's prisoner. And even though Allison tries to have a heart to heart with her earlier in the episode, that doesn't mean anything. She is not going to be anyone's prisoner. She is going to do what she needs to do. House of the Dragon is a show where you are basically rooting for your favorite war criminal. The cast of the show is amazing, and the story draws in the viewer and has them on the edge of their seat. And even after the show, everyone on social media cannot stop talking about it. I am impatiently waiting for season 2. HBO, if you're watching, let's get on that. But if you have not watched season 1 of House of the Dragon, I highly suggest that you check it out. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.